Welcome to Storytime. The Donkey Cabbages. There was once a young huntsman who went into the forest to lie in wait. He had a fresh and joyous heart, and he was going thither, whistling upon a leaf. An ugly old crone came up, who spoke to him and said, "Good day, dear huntsman. Truly you are merry and content, but I am suffering from hunger and thirst. Do give me an alms." The huntsman had compassion on the poor old creature, felt in his pocket, and gave her what he could afford. He was then about to go further, but the old woman stopped him and said, "Listen, dear huntsman, to what I tell you. I will make you a present in return for your kindness. Go on your way now, but in a little while you will come to a tree whereon 9 birds are sitting, which have a cloak in their claws and are plucking at it. Take your gun and shoot into the midst of them. They will let the cloak fall down to you, but one of the birds will be hurt and will drop dead. Carry away the cloak. It is a wishing cloak. When you throw it over your shoulders, you only have to wish to be in a certain place, and you will be there in the twinkling of an eye. Take out the heart of the bird, swallow it whole, and every morning early when you get up, you will find a gold piece under your pillow." The huntsman thanked the wise woman and thought to himself, "Well, those are fine things she has promised me, if all does but come true." And verily, when he was walking about 100 paces, he heard in the branches above him a screaming and a twittering. He looked up and saw a crowd of birds who were tearing at a piece of cloth with their beaks and claws, and tugging and fighting as if each wanted to have it all for himself. "Well," said the huntsman, "that is wonderful. It has come to pass, just as the old wife foretold." And he took his gun from his shoulder, aimed, and fired right in the midst of them, so that the feathers flew about. The birds instantly took to flight with loud outcries, but one dropped dead, and the cloak fell at the same time. Then the huntsman did as the old woman had directed him, cut open the bird, sought the heart, swallowed it down, and took the cloak home with him. Next morning, when he awoke, the promise occurred to him. He wished to see if it had been fulfilled. When he lifted up his pillow, the gold piece shone in his eyes. The next day he found another, and so it went on. Every time he got up, he gathered together a heap of gold, but at last he thought, "Of what use is all my gold to me if I stay at home? I will go forth and see the world." He then took leave of his parents, buckled on his huntsman pouch and gun, went out into the world. It came to pass that one day he traveled through a dense forest, and when he came to the end of it, in the plain before him was a fine castle. An old woman was standing with a wonderfully beautiful maiden, looking out one of the windows. The old woman, however, was a witch, and said to the maiden, "There comes a man out of the forest who has a wonderful treasure in his body. We must filch it from him, my dear daughter. It is more suitable for us than for him. He has a bird's heart about him, but means of which every morning a gold piece lies under his pillow." She told her when she was to get it and what part she had to play, and finally threatened her and said with angry eyes, "And if you do not attend to what I say, it will be the worse for you." Now when the huntsman came near, he described the maiden and said to himself, "I have traveled about for such a long time. I will take rest for once and enter the beautiful castle. I have certainly money enough. Nevertheless, the real reason was that he had caught sight of the pretty maiden." He entered the house and was well received and courteously entertained. Before long, he was so much in love with the young witch that he no longer thought of anything else, and saw things as she saw them, and did what she desired. The old woman then said, "Now we must have the bird's heart. He will never miss it." She prepared a drink, and when it was ready, poured it into a cup and gave it to the maiden, who was to present it to the huntsman. She did so, saying, Now, my dearest, drink to me." So he took the cup, and when he had swallowed the draught, he brought up the heart of the bird. The girl had to take it away secretly and swallow it herself, for the old woman would have it so. Thenceforward he found no more gold under his pillow, but it lay instead under that of the maiden, from whence the old woman fetched it away every morning. But he was so much in love and so befooled that he thought of nothing else but of passing his time with the maiden. Then the old witch said, "We have the bird's heart, but we must also take the wishing cloak away from him." The maiden answered, "We will leave him that. He has lost his wealth." The old woman was angry and said, "Such a mantle is a wonderful thing, and is seldom to be found in this world. I must and will have it." She gave the maiden several blows, and said that if she did not obey, it should fell with her. So she did what the old woman's bidding was, placed herself at the window, and looked on the distant country as if she was very sorrowful. The huntsman asked, "Why do you stand there so sorrowfully?" "Oh, my beloved," was her answer, "over yonder lies the garnet mountain where the precious stones grow. I long for them so much that when I think of them I feel quite sad, but who can get to them? Only the birds. They fly and can reach them, but a man never." "Have you nothing else to complain of?" said the huntsman. "I will soon remove that burden from your heart." With that, he drew her under his mantle, wished himself on the garnet mountain. In the twinkling of an eye they were sitting on it together. Precious stones were glistening on every side, so that it was a joy to see them. Together they gathered the finest and costliest of them. Now the old woman had, through her sorceries, contrived that the eyes of the huntsman should become heavy. He said to the maiden, "We will sit down and rest a while. I am so tired that I can no longer stand on my feet." Then they sat down. He laid his head in her lap and fell asleep. When he was asleep, she unfastened the mantle from his shoulders and wrapped herself in it, picked up the garnets and stones, and wished herself back home with them. But when the huntsman had had his sleep out, he awoke and perceived that his sweetheart had betrayed him and left him alone on the wild mountain. Then he said, "Oh, what a treachery there is in this world," and sat there in care and sorrow, not knowing what to do. But the mountain belonged to some wild and monstrous giants who dwelt thereon and lived their lives there. And he had not sat long before he saw 3 of them coming toward him. The giants came up, and the first kicked him with his foot and said, "What sort of earthworm is lying curled up here?" The second said, "Step upon him and kill him." But the third said, "Would that be worth your while? Let him live. He cannot remain here. When he climbs higher towards the summit of the mountain, the clouds will lay on him and bear him away." So saying, they passed by. But the huntsman had paid heed to their words, and as soon as they were gone, he rose and climbed up to the summit of the mountain. And when he had sat there a while, a cloud floated toward him, caught him up, carried him away, and traveled for a long time in the heavens. Then it sank lower and let itself down on the great cabbage garden, girt round by walls, so that he came softly to the ground on cabbages and vegetables. Then the huntsman looked at him and said, "If I only had something to eat. I'm so hungry, and my hunger will grow greater. But I see here neither apples nor pears, nor any other sort of fruit. Everywhere there is nothing but cabbages." At length he thought, "At a pinch, I can eat some of the leaves. They do not taste particularly good, but they will refresh me." With that, he picked himself out a fine head of cabbage and ate it. But scarcely had he swallowed a couple of mouthfuls when wonderful, he felt quite changed. 4 legs grew on him, a large head, and 2 thick ears. And he saw with horror that he was changed into a donkey. Still, as his hunger became greater every minute, and as the juicy leaves were suitable to his present nature, he went on eating with great zest. At last he arrived at a different kind of cabbage, but as soon as he had swallowed it, he again felt a change, and resumed his human shape. Then the huntsman lay down and slept off his fatigue. When he awoke the next morning, he broke off one head of the bad cabbages and another of the good ones, and thought to himself, "This shall help me get my own again and punish treachery." Then he took the cabbages with him, climbed over the wall, and went forth to seek the castle of his sweetheart. After wandering about for a couple of days, he was lucky enough to find it again. He dyed his face brown so that his mother would not have known him, and begged for shelter. "I am so tired," said he, "that I can go no further." The witch asked, "Who are you, countryman, and what is your business?" Said he, "I have been so fortunate as to find the most wonderful salad which grows under the sun, and am carrying it about with me." When the old woman heard of the exquisite salad, she was greedy and said, "Dear countryman, let me just taste this wonderful salad." "Why not?" answered he. "I brought 2 heads with me, and will give you one of them." He opened his pouch and handed her the bad cabbage. The witch suspected nothing amiss, and her mouth watered so for this new dish that she herself went into the kitchen and prepared it. When it was ready, she could not wait until it was set on the table, but took a couple of leaves at once and put them in her mouth. Hardly had she swallowed them than she deprived of her human shape, and she ran out into the courtyard in the form of a donkey. Presently the maidservant entered the kitchen, saw that the salad standing there ready prepared, and was about to carry it up. But on the way, according to habit, she was seized by the desire to taste, and she ate a couple of leaves. Instantly, the magic power showed itself, and she likewise became a donkey, and ran out to the old woman. And the dish of salad fell to the ground. Meanwhile, the huntsman sat beside the beautiful maiden, and no one came with the salad, and she also was longing for it. She said, "I don't know what has become of the salad." Huntsman thought, "The salad must have already taken effect," and said, "I will go to the kitchen and inquire about it." As he went down, he saw the 2 donkeys running in the courtyard. The salad, however, was laying on the ground. "All right," he said. "The 2 have taken their portion," and he picked up the leaves, laid them on the dish, and carried them to the maiden. "I bring you the delicate food myself," he said, "in order that you may have to wait no longer." And she ate it, and was, like the others, immediately deprived of her human form, and ran out of the courtyard in the shape of a donkey. After the huntsman had washed his face so that the transformed ones could recognize him, he went down to the courtyard and says, "Now you shall receive the wages of your treachery," and bound them together, all 3 with one rope, and drove them along until he came to a mill. He knocked at the window. The miller put out his head and asked what he wanted. "I have 3 unmanageable beasts," answered he, "which I don't want to keep any longer. Will you take them in and give them food and stable room, and manage them as I tell you? Then I will pay you what you ask." The miller said, "Why not? But how am I to manage them?" The huntsman then said that he was to give 3 beatings and 1 meal a day to the old donkey, and that was the witch. 1 beating and 3 meals a day to the younger one, which was the servant girl, and to the youngest, which was the maiden, no beatings and 3 meals, for he could not bring himself to have the maiden beaten. After that he went back into the castle, and found therein everything he needed. After a couple of days, the miller came and said he must inform him that the old donkey, which had received 3 beatings and 1 meal a day, was dead. The 2 others, he continued, are certainly not dead, and are fed 3 times a day, but they are so sad that they cannot last much longer. The huntsman, moved to pity, put away his anger, and told the miller to drive them back again to him. And when they came back, he gave them some of the good salad, so that they became human again. The beautiful maiden fell on her knees before him and said, "Oh, my beloved, forgive me for the evil I have done you. My mother drove me to it. I was done against my will, for I love you dearly. Your wishing cloak hangs in a cupboard, and as for the bird's heart, I will take a potion and bring it up again." But he thought otherwise and said, "Keep it. It is all the same, for I will take you for my true wife." So the wedding was celebrated, and they lived happily together until their death. The Donkey Cabbages.